And now I'd like to open the meeting to the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Jeremy.
I am so grateful tonight for the lessons I am learning here and how daily practitioner support reinforces and clarifies these lessons. Recently, I have begun to truly understand the importance of impersonalizing error, and the instant effect has been wonderful. I've had a few people in my life that I had believed were impediments, problems to work around. It had been like this for many years, until not long ago, after listening to my practitioner explain how error was impersonal, it finally clicked. I was holding these people in error. I was in the wrong. I felt awful after that, but then I remembered a testimony from last week that referenced this passage from Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. If you believe in and practice wrong knowingly, you can at once change your course and do right. So instead of beating myself up about what I've done, I decided just to move forward making it right. I saw this person again and really worked to know that she was just like all of us, a divine idea worthy of goodness that God has a very real and very positive purpose for. Instantly, the entire dynamic changed and the situation went smoothly. Afterwards, I found this statement by Mary Baker Eddy from Collectania. Be it small or great, we have in some way needed the experience we have had. Never be found as a Christian Scientist mourning over an experience. It is a thing of the past, but not so the manifold power and presence of God resulting therefrom. I'm so grateful for this lesson, because whatever mistakes I have made in the past, I want to leave behind me. Christian Science, as I am learning here, is giving me the ability to move forward and do right by God and His ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig.
Thank you. And those powerful readings. Thank you. Yes, we are. Things happen, but we can get up and become the bright light and good person that God has made. Where Jesus was tempted, Jacob, so many things happened, but there was triumph after it all. Just last Monday, not this Monday before last, I was healed of a toothache. I had an aching problem, and I called the practitioner and was told the practitioner about it, and was supported, and it was told that I am rooted and grounded in love. I remember that from the Bible, I believe it was taken. And the pain quickly started to depart. I could feel I was getting better, and before long I even realized I even had it, which is just very appreciative, because I could keep my mind on what was right to be done instead of myself. I also wanted to thank Mary Baker Eddy, who taught our practitioners to help. And also Benjamin the other day had reminded me to keep my poise, because we were doing the broadcasting, and he reminded me, he had done it before. And we said it with such confidence and poise that he knew that he could always do it and do it properly. And that just got rid of a little anxiety I sometimes face. And I felt so much at ease. I said, sure, God did it once through me. Certainly, I can never lose that. I just wanted to give that gratitude for that also. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon?
I'd like to give thanks for the lesson this week. It's really wonderful. And the story of Uzziah reminded me of a lesson I had to learn. As he listened to God, he prospered. And when he thought he could do his own thing, he had a severe problem. Well, it reminded me several years ago, I had been on a trip and I was coming home grateful for the opportunity and the blessing. And I drove into a severe storm. And I was peaceful and everything. And I was about 5 miles from home. And the thought came to get off a major highway at a certain exit. And I said, no, I'm going to go to the next one. It's closer to home. Well, that was the wrong thing because that exit was closed due to flooding. So I thought, well, that's all right. I'll go to the next one. I know where it floods and there's a shortcut. I'll just go through this shortcut. Well, I did, and I was partway down the shortcut, and a car coming the other way stopped me and said, don't go down there. It's all flooded. So I turned around, and as I was going back, the road was flooding near where I was driving. And all of a sudden, the thought, get off at this exit, came, and I knew it was an angel thought from God. So I quickly got on my knees and told God I was sorry I was not obedient, and I asked for help. And I listened very carefully, and I was directed to go different ways than I had ever been before. And the area I was in was a lot of factories, so I really had no clue where I was. But after a short time, I was taken to a road that was familiar and not flooded. And I thanked God. But this has been a lesson that stuck to me, that when I get these thoughts, don't just ignore them or say, no, I'm going to do this, because it is God speaking. And like we heard tonight, these are angel thoughts. I am so grateful for what I'm learning in this church, for all the practitioner help I've received, and I'm grateful for the readings. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. I am very, very grateful for our publication, Love is the Liberator. I am just completing the reading of it, and there are so many healing messages in it and so many uplifting thoughts that it is a wonderful publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Chardell from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Hello. First of all, thank you for the readings, the music, and the testimonies. I wanted to say that last Friday evening, my daughter texted to pray about combating fear. She then called and said my 16-year-old grandson was being taken to a hospital in Philadelphia by ambulance after being injured in a football game. I did have a flash of fear, but quickly went to prayer with God. The fear stopped. It was amazing. Then I emailed a practitioner from Plainfield to ask for support with the prayers. For several hours, I remained calm while praying with thoughts I have been learning from Plainfield Church. Here are a few. Since God is all in all, He fills all space. And then open our eyes and hearts that we may understand God's protection. And also, Thy kingdom come. There are no accidents in God's kingdom. My daughter texted again to say that all the x-rays were normal. I asked about my grandson, and she replied, he is starving and wants food. The next day, my daughter told me that she had no feeling of fear during the whole night. We all said, thank you, God. Yes, thank you, God, Mrs. Eddy for Science and Health, practitioner help, and all of Plainfield Church Independent. Good night.
Thank you. Tom from Iowa, go ahead.
I just want to give thanks tonight for the readings, really good readings, thank you, and for practitioner help I've been getting in the church, and I'm grateful for what I'm learning and the lesson sermons, the full text lesson sermons. I'm just really grateful to then know that Plainfield exists and for doing what they're doing and to be a part of it, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Benjamin.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here tonight. And also, I'm so happy to hear the wonderful reading. It was so inspiring. A week from today, last week Tuesday, I was at work, and my coworker just walked in, and she didn't look happy. It was very unlike her. And I asked her what was wrong. She told me nothing was wrong, she's fine. But since I knew her for a long time, I knew something was definitely wrong with her. And I went to speak with her privately. She told me that her sister just went into a coma, and there was nobody to be with her right now because both of her parents are traveling, and she don't know how to call off from work, that she have to be at work, and that the manager won't let her go. And knowing that it was not principle for manager not to let her go and be with her sister, and I went to the manager with confidence. And I spoke to the manager like I never spoke to anybody before, and I told the manager that she have to leave. That is the right thing to do. That she have to go and be with her sister. And the manager couldn't believe me standing up to her like that and telling her what to do. But she had no choice. She had to make that decision. Then she let her go. But before she left, I told her that her sister would be fine and that I would be praying for her sister. That her sister is in the care of God and God loves her so much. I spoke all the kind word to her, and I was absolute about all those words that I said to her. And she left. The next day she called me that her sister is so awake. And today she's home and happy, and I know if not what I've learned in this church, knowing that only truth can stand, and also standing with principle at all time. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in church, on the street, in the market, or in your workplace. You have to stand with principle. And when you do that, principle will work for you. I'm so grateful I'm learning this in this church, because if it wasn't this church, I would have observed the situation like she had done and let error take control. But God gave me the strength, the faith, and the courage to speak the truth to everyone involved. And God took control of the situation. She's home now and happy, and I'm so grateful to God. I'm so grateful that God brought me here and everything that I'm learning here.
Thank you. Linda from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for the beautiful service this evening. This week in our Bible lesson, one of the citations says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you." Thanks to the tireless support of a Plainfield practitioner, I saw this promise fulfilled in my experience last week. It has taken over a year of working with her to break down many walls, such as correcting misconceptions I had of Christian Science, addressing unhealed angers and fears, pride, and many more. And I was growing in my understanding of the Bible and Mary Baker Eddy's writings. A situation at work required me to speak up and express some concerns. I had to communicate with several people. In the past, I have always felt the need to orchestrate every detail and use my personal thinking to solve problems. I have been learning to turn my life over to God, where it really belongs. I had been working with the Plainfield practitioner on this particular challenge. She turned my attention to that week's lesson, which was all about trust in God. One particular day, there was only a small window for an important person to get the information that she needed in order for us to move forward. At first, it looked like it wasn't going to happen, Several times I got the strong urge I wanted to step in, but this time I felt a voice saying, wait, trust, watch me work, quiet, wait, and so I did. And I watched in awe as things unfolded in perfect order and timing. I could not have planned it. It was a gift for me to be able to do this and an honor to be cared for by our good God. I am so grateful for Christ Jesus, Mary Baker Eddy, the early workers, and the faithful here at Plainfield who have gone before us to show us the way. Thank you very much, and good evening.
Thank you. Gary?
We've heard some really good readings about angels, God speaking to us. I know one of the things I'm very grateful for is some help I got very early on when I arrived in Plainfield to really appreciate angels and to really appreciate God speaking to me, and to learn how to listen to God speaking to me. When I first got here, I used to love to read, find out what the experts were saying about everything I was involved in, my business or family, and I used to listen to the radio and loved good music. But it was after I asked a practitioner in this church for help with a lot of things that weren't going very well in my life that she taught me that if I wanted things to go right in my life, I had to stop and listen for what God was telling me and stop listening to everything else around me. She gave me a Bible statement from Zechariah that said, "Be silent, O all flesh, before the Lord." Well, I learned, for me, what that meant was, don't talk so much. Don't enjoy the sound of my own voice so much. And I was given another statement from our textbook by Mary Baker Eddy. It says, "Spirit God is heard when the senses are silent." And what does this mean? Well, it means don't entertain my senses. Turn the radio off. Don't watch so much television. Don't read so much that isn't absolutely necessary to read. I had spent all my life being so busy doing things and filling every minute of my life with things that I thought were important to do, that I wasn't taking time to listen to God. And it was not an easy thing for me to change, but I did. And it was a life-saving change to take the time to be quiet. Think about it. How easy is it to just be quiet and not have to say something? Well, when I learned to do this, things changed in my life for the better. I was able to know much better what really needed to be done and to do it. I was able to experience healing much more readily. And I was able to feel much more strongly God's presence with me. So I'm grateful for this lesson that I've learned in this church, for the love of the practitioner, for training me to better listen for God and his angel thoughts. It's so good to be here tonight.
Thank you. Carol?
went on a road trip the other day, and I noticed that the traffic was a whole lot heavier than I had ever seen it in that area. So I began to pray, and I knew, like I've been taught to do here in church, I knew that there's no congestion in mind, and that God's ideas flow freely and unobstructed. And I prayed like that, and with other things as well. And the traffic, even though it was heavy and it was slower than usual, it kept moving. And everyone in the car was peaceful and fine and happy, and no one was getting anxious or any of the sort. And it turned into a good ride. And when we got to our destination, we heard that earlier in the day there had been 2 accidents, and the traffic had been at a total standstill for over an hour. I was extremely grateful for God's protection. We left at the proper time, and we got it to our destination at the right time as well. And the road, the travel was pleasant, and it was happy. And we could just feel God's love and God's presence and the angel thoughts that came and just made everything right. I'm so very grateful to know that when there's anything going on, we can pray about it and we can ask for God's help. And we always get it. I'm very grateful for Christian Science and grateful for this church and for Mary Baker Eddy for giving it to us. And thank you.
Thank you. Florence, go ahead. Day.
No, it's Florence, sorry. Tonight I'd like to give gratitude for Christian Science, for the certainty that it gives us, for the worthy and holy purpose it gives us to live for. As hymn 253 says, "Thus truth engrounds me on the rock, upon life's shore, against which the winds and waves can shock, oh, nevermore." It is a great gift to think of the future and not fear anymore, because I feel, I know, and I understand that God is there. Thanks so much for the wonderful readings, the hymns, everyone's testimony, and for Christian Science.
Thank you. Dale from Virginia, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. The readings and the hymns and the testimonies are all so beautiful tonight. I'm very grateful for the teachings and guidance we have from the practitioners in this church. Recently, I was debating going to an out-of-state, quite a distance, a high school reunion, and I spoke to a practitioner about it. I didn't want to get involved with personalities, and so the practitioner guided me to ask God if this was something that I should do, to bless others and to let the Christ go before me. As it worked out, I went to the reunion, and I was able to bless others, to share the work of this church, and to share items on the website. After the reunion, my husband and I drove to another state to visit with relatives, and it was another very joyous experience. And at the end of our trip, because of road work, we had to come to a stop very quickly on the highway. The car behind us had to swerve into the breakdown lane to avoid hitting us, but no one collided, and everyone went smoothly on their way. There was no incident at all. This whole trip was supported by the prayer of a practitioner in this church, and it was a blessing to many people. As the practitioner said, it was the power of a right idea. I am so grateful for the teaching here of keeping our thought right with God, moment by moment, and to always be looking to bless others.
Thank you.
I wanted to express my appreciation for the beautiful solo this last Sunday. The messages joyously sung brought them straight to the heart. I love the music in this church. And then Georgia, another wonderful roundtable. Thank you all for the great ideas brought out. I am so humbled to be part of this inspiring and very important activity. And Pennsylvania, thanks to all who participated in tonight's wonderful service, October 7th. Some of the testimonies were especially instructive in areas I needed help. So glad the recorded services are made available shortly for listening again. Thanks to God for the Plainfield Church, especially for helping me to begin to get straightened out after decades of misunderstanding about the nature of Christian Science and what it means to be a Christian, and more. And then Virginia, thank you so much for all the wonderful and inspiring items to work with on the website Carousel. What an encouragement to know, as we are told in the Master Silversmith, that God has his eye on you and will keep watching you until he sees his image in you. And this one from China. I just found the Plainfield Christian Science YouTube channel, and I want to thank you for posting your activities, hymns, etc. on YouTube like this. I've been living in China for several years now, and one thing I miss is being able to attend a Christian Science church and to listen to the music, which I grew up with. I hope you continue to maintain this channel for years to come and let God guide those who need it here. Thank you for the generous efforts you make. You are a light in dark places. So it's things like that that make this all worthwhile. I too am very grateful tonight for our wonderful readings and the testimonies of the beautiful music. For those of you who don't know, if you turn on your computers at 8 o'clock, Jim plays a beautiful organ prelude until our church service begins. It's quite a treat to be able to listen. I was thinking about the beautiful readings about angels and remembering a time ago there used to be a show. It was about angels and miracles, and people would give testimonies about how they had been helped miraculously, really, with no human explanation for it. And I remember one in particular that impressed me so. It was about someone, he had been traveling on the Amazon River, I believe, and anyway, it was getting to be nightfall, and his boat had started to be surrounded by crocodiles. He had to come to land, which he did, but not without injuring himself. And he really thought perhaps it was going to be his last night on earth, because he had to spend the night in the jungle, hurt or wounded in some way. So he found a tree and he sat under it, and he could hear various animals out in the jungle, thinking that they were probably very hungry. And he really just prayed his heart out, "Dear Father, please help me." And shortly after that, he heard this terrific thrashing, and there before his eyes were these huge, some kind of beasts. Maybe they were wildebeests, I'm not quite sure, but anyway, they were huge, and they had long horns, and there was more than one of them, and he was absolutely terrified. And they stopped, and one of them charged toward him, and he kind of buried his head in his hands. But then he said something so unusual happened. The beast just sat down very close to him and very peacefully, and he spent the night there with him. And he said not only did this huge beast keep him warm, he has no doubt that he protected him from perhaps some other hungry animals out in the jungle. And he said it was an angel, the angel of his presence, being expressed in this animal, who kept him safe until daylight. And when daylight came, he left, and shortly afterwards, a search party found him, and he lived to tell that story. But this is the power of God, the power of his angels. There's never anything too extreme for His presence and power to be with us, to heal and to save. And I often like to think of that story, and I know there are many others, and I know many people have had experiences, similar experiences, and certainly with voices or the angel voice telling you what to do, when to do it, how to do something. They're always surrounding us. Martha Wilcox says that in her article on angels in her book. And are we aware of them? Are we grateful for them? Are we listening? I'm so grateful for Christian Science, for all that it's taught me about a wonderful God, a wonderful life in Him and through Him. Certainly grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you.